This year's NFL deadline is set to conclude November 1st at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time after the end of Week 8. And the Philadelphia Eagles seem to be in familiar territory as we once were, dating back to the Super Bowl year, about halfway through 2017. The Eagles seem to be in a championship contention atmosphere once again, and this time, who would be the move to set them possibly over the top? And we're back at it again. What is going on, everybody? Lindy Endzone is in for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Philadelphia Eagles. One video, podcast, or live stream at a time. And of course, if you didn't happen to catch the live airing of the Linc'd In Podcast with myself and host Philly Jim over on his channel, which was episode 16, which aired last night at 9:30 p.m. and spanned for about a little over an hour, as we had some bonus overtime to one of our final segments. Do be sure to head over to Philly Jim's channel and or Sideline Sports Network to catch the playback of that episode as we dived in a little more into the victory against the Dallas Cowboys, player report cards, where we thought the most credit was given in terms of the football team, and how the rest of the Eagles schedule after the bye stacks up either in our favor or against it. But nonetheless, yeah, it was a great episode. Be sure to check that out. And, well, as for me, the grind continues. You guys already know the deal. When it comes to myself, I'm not that I don't want to be in that frame of mind, but it's just subscribers will come when they do, and I'm just not one anymore to ask for that likes and shares, notifications, and I make my content, and then ultimately at the end of the day, that's up to y'all to decide if I'm a good enough voice of opinion to deserve your subscription. But nonetheless, let's get into the topic of discussion here. And yeah, of course, at the start of the video, we are talking about the trade deadline as it approaches again for this year being the 2022 NFL regular season. The Eagles are 6-0, and it came as a surprise to a lot of fans. Not many. I would think there was a good balance of people that thought that we would be dominant, and the possibility of maybe a little bit of a struggle in the beginning. But nonetheless, the Eagles took care of their business, and like I said, they seem to be looking at another championship type of window with the way that they have been playing. And the scary part is that, especially in terms of offense, they're inconsistent right now, but they're still fourth in the league in scoring at 27 points a game, while also possessing a top 10 scoring defense. Well, how can they really build on that? How can they get better? For me, I think it more so comes down to defense than it does offense. Offensively, they have done quite an awesome job in the acquisition of A.J. Brown, and how that has opened up things from an offensive standpoint, and complementing him alongside Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and then you have a lot of other serviceable players, not just including tight ends and receivers, but the running backs are doing a hell of a job when you got a mix of Miles Sanders, who's top 5 in rushing, with Kenny Gainwell. That gives a nice dynamic between the two, and you got your power running, especially in sneaks with your quarterback in Jalen Hurts. So overall, when it comes to the offense, I think we have a good idea where they are right now. But it's just building consistency. On the defensive side, yeah, there is some depth concerns here and there, and a lot of it boils down to how the team is going to look at the end of the season with a number of free agents more so coming on the defensive side of the football. When you're talking guys like James Bradbury, who's only here on a 1 year deal, Darius Slay could be looking at another extension, possibly. Kaiser White, TJ Edwards. We lost Derek Barnett for the year with an ACL injury, and the list goes on and on. So I've compiled a group of 4 players that may or may not interest the Eagles, and try to give some reasoning as to why they would be a decent consideration in terms of depth. And all 4 of these players are on the defensive side of the football. At the end of the video, of course, I will ask y'all on your thoughts on the players that I do display to you, and other players that you can suggest to me through your opinions that maybe there's players that you guys are also thinking of that I may not have included in this video. So let's get started with the first one. And I think this is an easy one that a lot of Eagles fans are kind of paying attention to here. And it's Robert Quinn of the Chicago Bears. Yes, he did have an explosive 2021 campaign, recording close to 20 sacks. I believe the number was 18 and a half, which is monstrous considering, Robert Quinn, as of right now, being 32 years old, last year being 31. And this would put the Eagles in an awesome position here, because you're looking at a guy who has been a seasoned veteran to this point. And as the considerations list here, a couple of things to look at in terms of making this kind of decision is that he's currently on the books for about $12.8 million. If a trade were to happen, the Bears would have to absorb a dead cap hit of about $4.2 million. So that may alter the amount of compensation to be had here, so long as it's balanced, so long as the transaction is balanced between the 2 teams. The other thing that this reminds me of is it kind of mimics when the Eagles signed Ryan Kerrigan. They were in of similar positions. Ryan was a long tenured Washington Commander, formerly known as We Know Who, and one of the only things that doesn't align and is that Ryan did actually request a trade at one point from Washington, and this dated back to 2020, and unfortunately he did not get his way in terms of that. Washington did not want to move on from him, and at that point in the year, I believe it was around the deadline, and he accumulated about 4.5 sacks. Now, in terms of Robert Quinn, he's showing a lot of similar statistics so far, but for a Bears team that's pretty underwhelming right now, and the compensation that he is currently being given by Chicago, yeah, he looks like a viable trade candidate for them, and he could very well give us some much needed depth in terms of pass rush when you want to give guys like Brandon Graham a break, and and have him in a nice rotation with Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick and of the likes with those guys. So in terms of draft pick compensation, this is sounding like a 4th-rounder to me. It may be more, but I think a 4th for him at this point in time is plenty fair, unless Chicago ups the price. Only because, again, it's the balance between what he costs. The Bears are going to take that dead cap, and we got to make it fair for our side as well. So moving on to the second one, and I don't know how other people I don't know how other people are going to feel about this selection here. Um, Being that he has been underwhelming across two teams, but nonetheless, a former top 10 draft pick back in 2020, and that is cornerback C.J. Henderson. Again, a former first round pick out of 2020 going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He kind of fell out of favor there. Currently, he has been dealing with, a couple of on and off injuries with the Panthers, including a groin, a knee. He is currently in concussion protocol right now. And, the Panthers are currently in a bind with their secondary injuries, considering they do not have Dante Jackson right now. And J.C. Horn is still nursing some rib injuries. But nonetheless, and again, I don't know if the Panthers are going to be 100% willing to move on from CJ, being that right now their corner depth is kind of damaged with the amount of injuries that they have sustained to this point. But when you look at it, again, depending on how much money we have at the end of the year, with the amount of players that are set to become free agents and the depth behind guys like Darius Slay and James Bradbury, isn't all that promising when we're only, when we can only really mention Zach McPherson on the outside. I think CJ can provide some pretty darn good depth as an outside corner. Measurables come in great for the position, 6'1", 204. At the combine, for what it's worth, he ran a 4.39, a former Florida Gator. After this year, he has 1 year left on his rookie deal. So he's going to be, one of those, I think he would be one of those, lower tier, under the radar, not really much of a bottom of the barrel type of trade for Howie Roseman, just considering what CJ was back in 2020. Again, top 10 pick in the draft. But again, this is a Panthers team that, they just fired their head coach in Matt Rule. CJ Henderson, Brian Burns, who we're going to talk about in a minute, Christian McCaffrey, there's DJ Moore. There's multiple players that seem to be up for grabs right now that the Panthers may be willing to move on from. Currently speculated that may not be the case for a guy like Christian McCaffrey. And again, we'll get to Brian Burns in a second. But when you talk about the secondary for the Eagles and what it may look like next year, without a clear vision on if an extension is in mind for Darius Slay or James Bradbury. Yes, the draft hasn't happened yet, but a guy like CJ Henderson could definitely be a consideration if you just want to bolster the depth at outside corner in case, knock on wood, one of these guys goes down. So again, let's get into our third player here. And yes, it is Brian Burns, another Carolina Panther. And yeah, as much as a lot of us Eagles fans would love for something like this to happen, it's just unfortunate that to me, I feel that this is one of the largest stretches, like a pipe dream type of trade. There's really no reason for the Panthers to move on from a guy like Brian. He's only 24 years old, a cornerstone-esque type of player, very productive, accumulating 4 sacks in 6 games. I mean, the guy's stature is absolutely menacing when you take his measurables into consideration. 6'5" at 250 pounds for an edge rusher. I mean, he's up there with some of the tallest tackles in the game. I mean, we know Lane Johnson is 6'5", Jordan Mailata 6'8", but Mailata's got Burns beaten terms of weight that, we already know Mailata is hard to move around, but you kind of get the picture there. Another benefit to Brian is the fact that he's relatively healthy. Since 2019, he's only missed one game. For 3 straight years, he has recorded 7 or more sacks. In terms of what he will cost, 2.3 mil base salary right now. Next season, it accelerates to $16 million. Currently, he counts for about 4.3 million against the cap, and he is set to become an unrestricted free agent in 2024. And well, as for anybody, the caliber of what Brian Burns looks like right now, and he looks like a Pro Bowl player, there's going to be a large pool of teams interested, and a lot of speculation is going around that aside from us in the Philadelphia Eagles, it could be the Seahawks, Ravens, the Rams, and Kansas City Chiefs. So whereas there was a trade scenario that I read on involving the Eagles to where it could take 2 first-round picks and Andre Dillard to acquire Brian Burns' services. Now, everything considered here, well, you would think that this type of trade would absolutely be worth it if you believe your championship window is increased tenfold when you add a guy like this to your lineup in terms of pass rushers. Well, if you got a guy that's set to become a free agent in 24, he is going, his salary is going to absolutely accelerate next year, and that may, unless we think Howie is going to continue to work his magic with restructures, that's quite a lot to take on for an edge rusher when you have a lot of other players that you want to consider for an extension. So I don't know. This one to me is almost a pipe dream. It feels like another Khalil Mack trade situation. But again, another young player, and that would be a fantastic opportunity for the Eagles. And again, last but not least, this is another interesting one, I feel, and it is, well, he's kind of described as a first-round bust up to this point that it has been 4 years, and that is former first-round pick Colin Farrell of the Vegas Raiders, 4th overall selected by them in the 2019 draft, only 25 years old on the last year of his rookie deal. In 3 years, he has missed a total of 6 games. The Vegas Raiders did not decide to pick up his 5th-year option, and he has kind of fallen out of the rotation for them unfortunately or fortunately, in terms of him being a idea of a trade candidate for us. It could be fortunate if we're willing to make the move for this type of player. Cap hit of about $10 million on a base salary of close to $5 million. And with that kind of cap hit and the lack of productivity that he has had to this point, it's almost as if you can't necessarily put 2 and 2 together with this situation. However, I think the other problem that can attest to the issue of his productivity is the fact that since 2019, the Vegas Raiders have not had stability in terms of the defensive coordinator. They have had a total of 4 different defensive coordinators since 2019, spanning from Paul Gunther, Rod Marinelli, Gus Bradley, and now their newest D coordinator for this year would be Patrick Graham, to which for a few years now, Raiders fans have been used to them running a base 4-3 defense. And since Patrick Graham arrived, it has changed into a hybrid 3-4 type of scheme. Now you would think that there would be some intrigue or interest here along the lines of adding, trying to acquire Colin Farrell's services if you're Jonathan Gannon, since you also like to run a hybrid-esque style of defense. But the only problem is when you're this caliber of when you're projected to be a certain caliber of an edge rusher and the position he's currently in now, it's kind of odd to see a guy like this play more special team snaps than defensive snaps. And if we go back to the list here, he's only reached 40% or more in a single game for defensive snaps twice. Take of that what you will, but that seems to be a little bit of a problem. So I think something like that would, come down to if this is a guy that, if this is a guy that the organization believes in combination of Jonathan Gannon and Tracy Rocker, that they can, with a fresh start, that they can get the talent out of him that the Raiders were looking for when he was drafted as high as he was in that class. I don't know. So I think between the four selections here that came to mind for me, there's two of them that are kind of iffy. That is, C.J. Henderson and Colin Farrell, who we just talked about. Brian Burns is the pipe dream type of scenario, just because of what he has already produced in his career so far. And just because the Panthers are in a bad situation doesn't mean that they have to, get rid of players X, Y, and Z left and right, especially there are better ones that could be franchise cornerstones like Brian. And then, Robert Quinn, to me, mimics most of what we hoped to get out of Ryan Kerrigan. And, acquiring him may suit us a little bit better than what we were hoping for out of Ryan. So that is my list of 4 players, and I'm sure there's plenty more that others can come up with. But let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments on the NFL trade deadline, with it approaching on November 1st. Who do you ultimately want Howie Roseman to acquire to hopefully open some more that championship window that it seems the Philadelphia Eagles are currently in when it comes to the NFC? Because remember, there's still a couple other juggernauts out there, and the most of them are in the AFC between the Kansas City Chiefs and Buffalo Bills. But again, we're only 6 games in, got a long ways to go before the season is over. So yeah, let's suit up for the long haul and find out who may end up also joining the Eagles with Howie Vision at his finest, as well, Howie Vision, as Philly 500 likes to say. But with that said, again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, everybody. And I appreciate you truly for making it to the end of this presentation. I know they're long, and sometimes people's attention spans don't bring them this far, and shorter videos are easier to watch. But sometimes that's just my style in how I like to go into detail. But either way, however long you've watched this video for, if you were able to finish it in its entirety, thank you very much. I do absolutely appreciate it. Still being somewhat relevant in the Eagles content creator community, with the best of them, and with the up and coming people. But with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Wish you all a good night, and thanks again for watching another presentation of mine. This has been Lindy Endzone taking the lead for the Eagles. One more video at a time. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Bleed green, fly Eagles fly. Everyone, y'all know the deal, and I will see you next time.